Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Expanded Understanding. It is episode number 44, which is a fun number
44.
for sure. One of the ones I like. Hang on, I didn't turn my shit down yet, but now I did. So,
All right. Yay.
anyways, welcome everybody. Tonight, I'm Zach. This is Aaron. We do stuff on the internet.
Every
You've
night.
been here for some of it. If you haven't been here before and you're checking this out in a replay for some reason, please like, subscribe, share the channel. We do a lot of cool community things, and we would like to incorporate you into them and into the community. And if you have the opportunity, try and join our live chat at 8 o'clock every single night where we, I don't know, hang out in here, really. We don't ever really have like a sharp plan or anything. Nevertheless,
Well, we do sometimes have people and interviewing things, but random music, and D&B live jam sessions as we try to figure shit out and have a good time sounds like an awesome way to do a nightly show.
yeah, I don't know that we're going to be doing. I mean, if that's what you want to turn this show into, then more the merrier. But nevertheless, whatever. Yeah, we don't really know what we do with this show, but
Yeah,
thanks
it's
for
all
being
happening
here
as it's
to
happening.
hang out. Recently, we've been
Hi,
talking
Jacob.
about
Meow.
sound a lot because we're pretty interested in sound. Yeah, I was on I went on like a 4-hour diatribe about random stuff to Jen this morning, and quite honestly, neither of us can remember anything I talked about. It's kind of an interesting situation.
Yeah.
But,
Maybe
I
you
don't
just
know.
need a bunch of random shit to come out of your mouth, and now it's out, and now you can fill it with other things.
Yeah, the issue is now I have no idea what to talk about these, So it was, it's a thing. Yeah, we don't need that. So it's nice to see you, Aaron. It looks wonderful behind you as always. The beautiful view.
It's Edmonds.
Looks cooler there than it is here. It was like 110 here today. It was pretty sweet.
Yikes.
So
Nope.
pretty
Nope.
awesome.
I was already down there in the 90s with you. Nope. 110 sounds awful where you're at. No thanks.
Yeah, it decided to get warmer, so that's fun. But
Yeah.
at
Yikes.
any rate, yep, doing a lot of maintenance stuff today with technology and whatnot. On top of talking to Jen for a very, very long time. A lot of explaining stuff to Jen about her show and such as well, and how we could do things differently for micro content, all kinds of weird stuff like that, which ain't very fun to talk about on the podcast if you're not hosting a podcast. Not that interesting to you. So
Speaking of which, I got suggested for a Facebook group for podcast underdogs or underdog podcasters or different like podcast startup groups or whatever. So I joined a couple of them. So that's interesting. Just on that note, and I was doing. I got caught up today on because I think I stopped doing it when I came down there. I just got in a totally different daily groove, and today I got caught up on doing all of our shows, putting thumbnail images on them, and then titling them based on something we talked about in there. So that's all, and then doing the keyword tags on all those and all that stuff. So that's all caught up on our shows. Then I realized, oh, well, Jen's doing a daily show, and it'd probably be good if she had a thumbnail and like a title, because as people specifically going for the certain meditations or certain talks she's doing. And anyway, so that'll be coming, I guess. But ours are caught up for now, so that's progress.
I mean, in many ways, I think that the splash screens are more orderly and functional than having some random frame of the podcast, personally. So I probably wouldn't touch the other ones that are already set up like that.
Okay,
personally.
easier work for me.
If we're going to... What on earth is happening outside my house? I have no idea. Nevertheless, in the future, if we want to have thumbnails, we should make thumbnails that basically go over the top of the static image that is already there. And then, that works better in the long run. So
yeah, the reason I think doing it for now, one, it gives the titles, and then the screenshot, at least for me, I know the way my brain works, so I can see
anything to do with the thumbnail. So two separate things entirely. The title is very good.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so with the thumbnail, the visual for me, like I remember where we were at in that conversation, seeing a thumbnail of like what was on screen or what was going on in the topic or whatever, helps me like recall all the information that we were talking about in it instead of just the exact same every night at 8 podcast thumbnail on all of them. Plus, when we post and we put a thumbnail image, whatever it is, like reposting that link, at least there's like our faces or something that's just not the So we're posting every day. It's not the same thumbnail every single day. So it's something that's somewhat enticing. But I know micro content will do that on its own. We just don't have any right now. So it's a half measure, I guess.
Sure. All right. I mean, you do what you want
Mm.
to do with your time. It's your time, and you should do what you want with it. That's what I support with pretty much everybody. So, hello everyone in the chat. Maya, Willow, Kevin, Sam, Jacob. Good to see all of you. As every other night, anybody else that's here. Um, yeah, we have about 150 million hours of work that we could do on this podcast to make it better. Turns out
Yep.
there's only like 150 million hours in two people's like 30,000 lifetimes. So, it's hard to get to all of it, but it is what it is. This is what you get right now.
We're trucking along, man. We're day 44 in, and yeah, we're doing it every day. So yeah, our conversations every time we talk about it won't necessarily be all holistic and succinct for the podcast because we're doing this every day. So this is the random chatter you get because we're doing this every day, which is still a little weird. But we've been on our pilgrimage 40 days plus some. Still
I think
going.
a worthwhile thing to talk about at any point in time is the concept of unity, and that's worthwhile to talk about at this point in time too. With the state of the world and the world being in confusion, if nothing else, stay together with the people who believe in the same things as you, and don't necessarily be, eager to change your beliefs, but urge yourself to be accepting and tolerant of other people's beliefs, because unity has an enormous amount of benefits that separation just really doesn't provide. And like Jordan Peterson talks about, that really like the game, if you look at life as like a game, that it's really not about necessarily winning the game, but getting people to want to play with you again. And unity is
100%.
much better at doing that than competition or separation. And there's always a way, if we the people want to live a better life, to work with the people that you interface with to ensure that both of you come out of it in some way capable of enhancing your life. And I personally like to take it on to myself to ensure that every interaction that I go into in some way, shape, or form leaves the situation with the person moving forward, either having had a better experience, learning something that they'll be able to take into the future, getting something that they wanted to get done, whatever the case may be, enhance their life in some way. And I urge you to do the same. It really does have reciprocal benefits, even if those people don't give you something about it. Like the universe seems to make sure everything is balanced in the long run. So really, try to love everyone, try to be unified, try to see their point, try to incorporate their point into the reality. Try and short format, be a good person. That's always a good thing to think about.
It's a good aim to have. So we're want to discuss unity and just dive in on that. So we're thinking.
I just said something about unity, trying to put something of value in here besides going like, we don't have anything to talk about, and here's some stuff that you wouldn't want to hear about.
Well,
so it's not, Willow says plur. All of these are very worthwhile things to hone in your life. The ability to make peace with any situation, the ability to love, the ability to experience unity, and the ability to show and receive respect from other people. All of these things, like, one person's format of peace is not the same as someone else's. One person's format of love is not the same as someone else's. One person's format of respect is not the same as someone else's. But unity is the space that is provided for all of these things to coexist. And that's what really allows them to truly be what they are. So, all of these things are very worthwhile things to try and train inside of your life. If you want to enhance your own experience, you don't need some kind of teacher or a guru or a book or meditation or something. Simply ask yourself, like, how can I love more? How can I see more unity in this situation? How can I show more respect to this other form of life? How can I be more peaceful? Any of these questions are always a worthwhile question to ask yourself in the moment, and you will probably learn something about yourself. It's really actually impossible to get off of some type of path of self-discovery, because even if you sit in a completely quiet cave with your eyes closed, you will find that you still learn something about yourself. So, all of these are always worthwhile questions to ask yourself if you want to have a more cohesive experience with the life that exists around you. And you'll find that I think that enhances your life as well, in all kinds of reciprocal ways. That a lot of them it's in your best interest to not try and necessarily imagine what they could be, because some of them are like weirder than you can imagine. So, you know,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
all very valuable questions. Just this is like the concept of sadhana. You could pick any one of those and always ask that question permanently. And sadhana is basically a practice that sits behind every yogic doctrine. It's not really talked about in the West with yoga because we think of it more as an exercise, but yoga is
Yeah.
really more like a way of life at its core. And at the core of yoga is the idea of sadhana, which is basically a dedication that you have, that you always do that thing, right? So there's like the ones I usually use as examples are Raja Yoga, which is basically the dedication to intellectualizing reality, or making some cognitive logical sense of God, and that's how you progress your spiritual experience. Whereas oftentimes, like Bhakti Yoga is Bhakti really means devotion, but in the case of Bhakti Yoga, the way that this is generally practiced is through devotion of love, and otherwise worded as worship of Krishna, which Krishna is all about coherence and love. So, nevertheless, is this dedication basically to either figuring it out logically, or this dedication to experiencing the most love and being the most pure representation of love in any type of situation. These are just, these separate these two yogic disciplines really. They both have asanas that they stand in, the exercise kind of stuff. They both share all the other traits really of a yoga, but their devotion is different. They're dedicated to a different thing, and that kind of creates a lot of vast differences. But really, all that is the difference between different yogas is what is their sadhana, and
Mm.
this is the idea of sadhana. So dedicating yourself to things like this, you don't have to dedicate to it for your whole life, but and you can dedicate to many of these things at the same time. I think. Do you have full dedication to any one of them? If you're dedicating to many at the same time, maybe not, but it definitely feels like you're learning about several of them at the same time, and maybe that's good enough for you. It's been good enough for me a lot of times, and these are really just like contemplations that any situation that you engage with, if you wanted to, you could basically go into any situation or any interaction and ask yourself, how is this peace? How is this love? How is this unity? How is this respect? And in every situation that you went into, you would learn a constantly evolving data set of what those things can be, right? What can
Mm.
peace look like? Sometimes peace doesn't mean that both people are like happily coexisting with one another. Peace can also be two people standing on their basically discerned side of the line, but they're not choosing to cross it in any kind of aggressive fashion, right? So there's a
Mm.
wide range of what can peace be, what can be in the same place without having some type of disorder. I guess that's kind of the opposite of peace. I don't know. What is the opposite of peace in the chat? That'd be a good question to ask. I don't really know what the opposite of peace is. A lot of times people say like war, but is that like
Contention. Would you say content, like a constant state of contention instead of a
perhaps?
constant state of, yeah,
Yeah, I mean
perhaps.
that seems like something somebody could say for sure. I mean, Leo Tolstoy just discerned it as war, and war is
Mm.
kind of contention. So I think you probably have some agreement from him. He seemed like a pretty smart guy.
Well, and contention seems a little less like war is, final act. Like Congress they have to approve to go to war. It's like a final forward moving act. Contention is just like a state. Like there's a peaceful state around someone. There's just a peaceful disposition, but or is a contentious underlying disposition. It seems to me for the nuances.
Sure. I guess that what we could look at antonyms of peace. See if
Yeah,
that
I
kind of
love
help
this
you
thesaurus. I use
know what
thesaurus
other
all the
people
time,
think.
man.
Conflict is one of the ones that's on here. So, and that would definitely be like kind of contention, conflict.
Hmm.
Um, Agitation, distress, conflicts listed on here in two different things. So,
Ooh, picked a conducive word, huh? Nice.
yeah,
Conflict.
contentment and content is one of them, a similar antonym. So, yeah, conflict, a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. I don't know. That seems a little like harsh. Well, the verb format of it is be incompatible or at variance, clash. That's a much like
Hmm.
less harsh definition. With that definition, you
Yeah.
could go with the opposite of peace is conflict. So, yeah, Maya
Hmm.
and Willow both said conflict, so that that seems safe.
Yeah. Conflict.
So, nevertheless, even inside of, if you were in a space where you are seeing conflict and you say, how is this peace? It's anti peace, right? This is showing you everything that peace is not. And that's a very valuable piece of learning when you're learning about anything, right? To understand the identity of something is not just to know what it is. Knowing everything that it is also just happens to tell you the other part, because everything that it is not is what it's not. You know what I mean? But when
Hmm.
you're learning what something is, you're also learning what it is not. So by looking at what it is not, you can also learn what it is. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter whether the situation that you're looking at is a peaceful one or one filled with conflict or contention. When you look at it, you can say, "How is this peace?" And you could say, first and foremost, that like it's peace or it's anti-peace, and then look deeper into that concept. And you could do the same thing with love, unity, respect, really any concept. But those four might take a person an entire lifetime of contemplation to really understand it. The love one alone is a pretty tricky one, for sure. Love looks a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Unity as well. Unity is accepting of everything. That's difficult for a human. You know?
Hmm.
Like I
Well, okay, where's the, so it seems to me unity as a concept isn't hard to grasp. Yeah, unity, I believe what they want to believe. Like, where do you feel the contention comes in or the conflict for people to not live in unity?
mutual exclusivity, right? So like I
Hmm.
believe like the world is owned by the world. People shouldn't really own the land. They should be able to use the space that they want to use. Well,
Yeah.
the Queen of England doesn't agree with your ideology. And the ideology that she has is that she should own the land, for instance, and she
Yep.
has a way of exerting that force over it. So rather than like sitting down and talking with you and going like, okay, what's a way that I could own the land but you could also have the thing that you have, which in some cases is actually impossible. If we're talking about serious mutual exclusivity, we're saying that it's actually impossible. And when it comes to that, basically either both or one of the person's ideologies have to bend, and they're usually not okay with that. And that's really like where conflict usually ends up happening, even if everybody's trying their best to be quote unquote peaceful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So I can see like when they're trying to find resolution or something, I mean that's where conflict happens. But then if your ultimate value system or goal is unity, then it would seem, I mean, 'cause it seems to me, at least geopolitically and a lot of times, or even in, I guess you could say, even down to any kind of friendship, even a relationship or whatever, it's when you get to certain levels of, um, oh gosh, I don't know, what would you call them? Ultimatums or immovable objects, but that's subjective based on each party. You know what I mean? What they are deciding this subject or this thing is we cannot compromise on, even if it forsakes doing unity or coming
Mm-hmm.
into unity or something.
Right.
So some level of changing the value system that you let go of the things that hinders you from unity, it's got to go or it's got to be modified. I imagine. And then, I mean,
Yeah,
how
I
many people
mean, well,
do that with their
coming
core?
into coherence or that unity really means that you find a way to exist in a space that accepts anything else into the space. So if you're taking some kind of staunch position that says like, well, that cannot exist in the same space as me, you've already basically abandoned ship on unity, no?
Right. Yeah.
So you weren't really that dedicated to unity. You're a little bit
Right.
more
Right.
dedicated to your own personal ideology, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Well, and that's where you
fine. Like
always.
I'm not saying everybody has to be dedicated to unity, but you certainly can't sit around and claim, "Well, I'm dedicated to unity, but I refuse to bend on this. I refuse to see this a different way." Right?
Right. Yeah. And I guess that's the longer you're in a prolonged dynamic, I mean, that's where there's more opportunities for any underlying motives that you may not realize are there or whatever to surface.
Sure.
Which gives an opportunity to address them and then realign them and find coherence.
Yeah. I mean, unity works really good when there's absolutely no rules, right?
The
Because
anarchy, right? True
I mean,
anarchy.
you could call it anarchy, but I'm really just saying that there's no rules. Like it's even, I mean, even more than that, right? Like in even in a state of anarchy, you would have a lot of these like mutual exclusive coexistences. But if like literally the idea of any type of rule set was completely gone, then unity is very, very easy because the rule is what discerns whether or not something is accepted into the unity, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because I came from the Christian framework, so it was there's a lot of freedom within the like ultimately you check and see if it conflicts with the Bible first. If it does, if the Bible's black and white on it, then there's a framework. But there's tremendous amount of things the Bible is not black and white on, like just everyday
Mm-hmm.
life stuff and circumstances. So it uses the initial framework. But if there's not a clear answer, then then you apply different principles and other things. It's very, very, very subjective. But there is an initial framework that is
Sure.
referred back to. And so I guess if unity is itself or freedom, acceptance of, I mean, how would you articulate it down to just a distilled singular framework? It's not a Bible. It's just kind of a, I think you might have said it already earlier, but like the sense about unity or a framework to refer to.
Well, that's kind of the thing is that like it doesn't Unity don't work so good with frameworks,
Right.
you
That's what
know.
I'm saying. So like, so there's a core like essence or not framework that's not trying without creating a framework, maybe a ball, a little sphere of an idea at the center of that people refer to when they're walking out their own expression.
I
And
mean, if you
that would
really
be
want
just
to
be the word
isolate it down
unity,
to what
but
it acts out like is basically like figure out a way to accept everything. Just like never think about how to combat
yeah,
against it. Just literally
yeah,
like how do I render myself okay with that? You know what I mean?
right.
That's really what like this I think coherence is a better term in most contexts. If you're trying
Yeah.
to understand function from it, then I would agree, right?
Mm.
So it's just the whole idea is just distilling something or the everything down to one thing, you know. It's
Yeah.
operable as a one thing. This is not in line with what some people would like to do. Unity has a lot of things that come with it that a lot of people are not interested in. For instance, the
Like
idea of
what?
like having some kind of legacy or being the one that has done it or these kinds of ideas. These things
Mm.
disappear inside of Unity because you need to fall away from your identity and just be a part of the whole. Your identity is upheld by all of these various different kinds of rules. If you didn't have all these various different kinds of rules, then you wouldn't in unity you can't separate yourself from something else. That's antithesis to unity would be separation functionally. So
Mm.
all of these ideas of identities are functionally separations. Most people don't actually want to give up their entire identity. They want to be having some kind of experience, or they want to be accomplishing something, leaving a legacy behind, something like that. If you really get deep into unity, the idea of you goes away for an idea of the whole, right? Instead of me as we, basically now. And
Yeah.
so me never accomplishes anything. Only we accomplishes something, right?
Yeah, I get it conceptually. I mean, I feel like there's still internal contentions that I don't even know what they are exactly. It's probably just English and nuances and stupid shit because it doesn't feel like I have some kind of core contention. It's just like little stupid logical, logistical things that, because I understand the core of what you're saying. Like I'm in total agreement. And even the, um, I mean, whether it's you call us per, shit, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess virtue or a positive value system people try to pursue, whether what you're
Is
saying. So
unity that?
that
Is that what you're asking?
no, a facet of that. I'm trying to think through like different aspects I'm in wholehearted agreement with for sure. And I think at a core level, definitely am. It's just all the stupid words. I mean, even peace is, getting to the etymology of that, and just the words are, um, whatever. Words are very tricky. So, but the idea of like not needing credit or a legacy, right? The value system for me is like knowing that even if no one else ever knew, the circumstances that led to this situation or to my death or all the details of my life, or if I just disappeared, no one ever knew who I was or what I did, or, what matters is every moment that I'm doing something that it's coherent with me, that I know when I die, I'll have the memory, if you will, of my life and how I made the decisions I made here. So it's like this
Sure.
own internal world of just me finding coherence with my own choices and decisions, past, present, and future ones, whatever they might be. So like
Yeah.
the name of stuff, like I get like on some minor level, like right in the culture we're in or have been in for a long time. Like if you're writing a book, you're not just giving it away for free. It's attached to your name, and there's money that would probably come with that or whatever. Like there's dynamics like that that are fine. I mean, whatever is situational, circumstantial, or you can give your book away or whatever you want to do. Um, but at the same time, like long, big picture, big term, like, or even what we're building with the channel and everything, is ultimately trying to build a starship, I guess, if you will, or on this planet, just a place now, like we talked about over and over, not just a digital community, which we're building. And like Kevin said last night, that when he was on the show, it was he realized he was on the show the night before when we were frank, that it was, I think he said, like the first time he'd felt like he totally forgot that he was online. Like we were actually just present with each other and connecting. It was very, very just real and authentic, and just had that reality within it digitally. Like what an amazing thing
Yeah.
that we're doing that. And so, but then have that physically, moving towards that on the earth. So all these other issues and the things going on right now that we're not even giving attention to, like that we can be outside of that in a healthy way, not like, ooh, get me away from those dirty people, like we're like, but it's creating a more functional, unified reality that will be its own attracting light that will draw the people who are ready to be a part of that in, because everyone's welcome. But we're not going to force it on this culture that doesn't want it and won't allow us to stay here and do it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason to try and force anything anywhere, or at least, I mean, that Gene Keys fucking convinced me of that. At least.
Mm.
I don't know whether it's true, but I've been firmly convinced for 2 years because of that book. So.
So elaborate on that aspect. Yeah, Gene Keys helped you realize not to force anything.
Kind of like Reader's Digest version, as I came at the idea of forces from the scientific idea that they were just like fundamental things inside of reality. So I didn't really conceptualize the idea that like a force would be a bad thing, right? A force was just like a fundamental thing. I didn't really think about it as like a good bad thing. And then through Gene Keys, inside of my Gene Keys, one of the keys was the shadow state of it. Gene Keys have three different states, and one's basically like the long term goal, one's like what you probably could be right now, and one's what you're trying to not be, basically, or otherwise known as the shadow, gift, and Sid he states in progressively better order. So
Mm.
this in there forces a shadow state, and it has a lot of like philosophical musings on why that is, but really just the basic idea is that like anytime that you're forcing, you're trying to functionally like assert your agenda, but you never actually have any proof that you know that you're doing the right thing. So
Mm.
forcefulness almost always goes against the grain of what the universe intends to happen. And as a
Mm.
byproduct of that, we either are, well, we at the very lowest level, we expend more energy than necessary to get to the next moment by forcing ourselves in a direction that was not the direction that the universe intended. If we went with a path that was not forceful, we would find that we would get at least the same result for no effort that we do as now by putting in the effort to get that result, because the result that we're going for is a forceful result. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? And
Right.
elaborations on that as well kind of definitely gave me a whole lot of reasons to look at force as like force in the way that I really actually fully understand the concept, not just like the way that it was at like the first layer of my brain that I was kind of watching it hit whenever I would hear the word. That
Mm.
concept was not really something that I wanted to be putting or wanted to be doing in my life. I didn't want to be that thing. It seemed like a caustic operation, especially
Yeah.
inside of my relationships with other people, particularly women. Any
Mm.
type of force with women did not seem good to me at all, especially after reading that, and then
Mm.
even more so after contemplating it for a while. So it very
Yeah.
much so convinced me that like forcing stuff is not the way to go. That's that in and of itself has been pretty liberating in my reality, because like while I'm very driven to get things to happen, I also feel absolutely no desire to make them happen.
Yeah.
And so it's very freeing in the moment and makes doing productive things funner, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, No, it's real. There's several things. I was looking at the whole audio thing too, and I'm trying to figure out if it's on my end or what's going on. Because you were choppy when you were talking there to me, but I know I sound choppy to you. You're saying, right?
It's like an audio click that's inside of when you're talking.
Oh, yeah. It's feel like I'm hearing the same thing on. Anyway, it's listenable. It's just something.
Does
Um,
anyone hear that in my audio? Because it's altogether possible at StreamYard. I don't know. So I'd like to hear if you hear it in my audio too, because then we could maybe discern what the problem is. Until then, deal with it.
that cut out. I didn't even hear anything you said there.
Okay, well,
Is that
Kevin
me?
said no, but I'm not sure entirely what no means. Just Aaron
Just
sounds like
Aaron.
he's tapping on his throat. Are you
Huh.
tapping on your throat?
No.
Perhaps if you try
Um,
tapping on your throat, it will reverse the effect of sounding
maybe
like
if
you
I'm
are trying to
tapping on
tap
my
on your throat.
throat right now, as I'm tapping on my throat while I talk, maybe the audio will counterbalance out and find coherence and not sound choppy at all.
I
All
don't
right,
know. Maybe it's working.
let me log off and I'll go back in. BRB.
Maybe that works. All right. So, while Aaron's gone, if you're watching in the replay, please like, subscribe, share. Check out our social media things down below. We got all kinds of cool stuff that happens in the community and all kinds of cool people that are in the community. Several different shows that take place on this channel. Bunch of other stuff still coming up in the future once we, get around to doing everything that our minds come up with. So, nevertheless, hopefully Aaron will be better when he comes back here. We would like you to join us for these community events, because we are very much so trying to make this community an open space for really anybody who chooses to actually come around here and be open to, like, people being who they are and not being like judgmental of that and shit, because why? Like, that doesn't really get you anything in life. And so, if there was a rule around here, it's basically just that. Like, don't cause fucking problems for no reason. And, we really appreciate that everybody here has seemed to naturally want to, be a part of that kind of rule. That's been very helpful. We're very happy to have all of you around here, and we love all of you very much. It's incredible how, like a lot of people that are around here, I did not know at all 45 days ago, and now I feel like I know you very, very well. It's quite interesting. So, Zach could turn up his mic volume a little bit. So, okay.
Okay, did Aaron fix it? Did Aaron do it, guys? Kevin, did
It
Aaron
sounds better now to me.
Tell me, Kev. Give me the good news, loud.
It's probably good now.
All right, I think, yeah, it was connected. Yep, cool. It's connected to my phone and to my tablet at the same time. So, yay, technology for not finding coherence among devices. Jesus. All right, my
Yeah.
phone wasn't even playing anything. So, anyhow, so you're saying, actually, I wasn't listening, so I might totally interrupted you.
It doesn't really matter. What
All
the
right.
thing that I was talking about, I was pretty much done with it right then.
Okay, well, let me elaborate on that dynamic too. Okay, so, shit, all the audio stuff. You said force, life, energy return. Okay, so then there's a facet of that. So when you stop trying to force, that you will get at least the same or better, with less effort, right? Because you're not trying to force, and whether that's going with the flow of things or finding creative ways around. It's so what you're talking about. To me, I feel like I've lived that way in a lot of ways now that you put in that framework. Where, like, dancing through life or swimming through life, right? Just finding the ways, going, and it's like there's still a lot of creativity there. There's a lot of ways that you see there's a desire or a pursuit, and there's some form of, now that you have to call an obstacle, but there's some form of engagement between there and that point. And there's so many variables, right? So you can force your way through, right, and make things happen, or find ways to dance or swim or have some kind of interaction with every person or every dynamic in a way that is one fractal pattern to the next, until then you get to where you wanted. And then also being open that where you wanted to go is probably going to change. Like, as you start to dance or move around, a lot of times what we thought you've circumambulated, in a sense, between there as you're approaching it. And so then maybe what you wanted isn't in that place, or doesn't look like that, or that itself changes to some other fractal pattern, or TAS 4K DNA interpolation beat, graphic.
The dancing word I like a lot. The swimming one I think is tentative, especially with some of the other mindsets that are out there. Like
Oh, tell me.
Abraham Hicks goes kind of
Uh-huh.
directly against it. Not actually swimming, but rowing. And one of her like pretty well known, her Abraham's an entity, but
Mm-hmm.
nevertheless, one of the ideas from that thing is like if you're ever having trouble, just stop rowing. And in a certain way, this is kind of aligned with the same concept in the idea that your attempt to control your life is probably the reason that your life is not going good.
Right.
So if you stopped trying to control your life for a little while and like watched what happened, the universe would inevitably like realign you with what your path is supposed to be. Oftentimes people are not interested in going through that realignment process because it means the destruction of various things that they've
Mm-hmm.
established inside of their life. Those things that they've established in their life are exactly the things that are keeping them from living the life that they want to live. And their drive to hold
Right.
on to those things and incorporate those things that are decoherent with what they are trying to do is exactly what stops them from being able to be coherent with themselves. And so they
Yeah.
stay in whatever jobs, relationships, engagement, interactions. They stay in various interactions and practice attachment to those interactions. And you can go anywhere you want. You can be anything you want to be. But,
Yeah.
like, well, for instance, the highest format of yourself doing what it was really here to do doesn't, like, work for some corporation pushing papers. It doesn't do that. You
What?
know
It
what I
doesn't
mean?
work for the Galactic Federation of Light?
I mean, if it does, it's not a fucking paper boy. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So, nevertheless, the real point is that things that give you security inside of your life, like maybe your corporate job pushing papers that makes you lots of money and makes sure that you can take care of your family. I get it why you keep it. It's fine, totally fine if you want to do that, but realize you're just making a choice to be more aligned with basically your earthen dimension, or I guess a lot of places they call it like your 3D self, than some higher dimension format of yourself. That's completely fine. You don't have to go to the 57,000th dimension in this lifetime. You can fucking stay right here if
Right.
you want to. I don't care what you do, personally. But if
Yeah.
you're trying to align, come into coherence with, live your most like multi-dimensional life, then attachments to certain, really any dimensionality, doesn't matter whether it's here or there or over anywhere, it doesn't matter. But attachments to those things will have some type of interface that inhibits your ability to move freely throughout the system. So
Yeah.
like it's pretty easy to like create the reality that you want if you don't put a whole lot of variables on it. If it's like vague, the more
Right.
variables you start putting onto it, the more identities you say need to be there, the more difficult it becomes to create it. You know,
Right.
if
Right.
I my what I want for my reality is I want to be happy, I can literally just make the choice to be happy right now with whatever is here. No matter what my situation is, I can just set
Mm-hmm.
the bar at acceptable for that and be happy with it, right?
No doubt.
Even if it's
Yeah.
shit.
100%.
I'm not saying that that's something that you should do. I'm saying it's
Right.
something you
Right.
could do,
Totally.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Totally.
nevertheless, if my only stipulation of my reality was that I was happy, I could just do it now. But when I say I want to be happy, I don't mean I want to be happy, getting a dump truck full of shit poured on my head constantly. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying. I'm saying I want to be happy driving a fucking Lamborghini or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to get that Lamborghini now, that's a little bit more difficult than just choosing like, man, fuck it, I'm happy with whatever's right here, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't really just want happiness. I also want a Lamborghini, you know what I mean? And I also want a
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
house, and
Yeah.
I also want a girlfriend and some friends to share it with. And if my buddy doesn't have a Lamborghini, then I won't be able to roll around with him. And I need a system in this bad boy. And it turns out my buddy, he actually has a bunch of aftermarket shit on his Lamborghini. So like, I got to get some aftermarket shit on my Lamborghini because I don't want to like not be able to keep up with him. And you know what I mean? Like it's just on and on
Right.
and on. You start adding all these different identities, then your reality becomes very difficult to not only like maintain, very difficult to also control, and very difficult to create in the first place. If your stipulations are much lower, it's very, very easy, you know? So one
Right.
should
Right.
like,
Or
uh,
broader, you could say maybe like not they're less
that's what
low
vague is,
resolution.
right? That's what
Yeah.
vague
Yeah.
is. It's just broader. You know?
Yeah. No, it's less low resolution, vague, general. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really just about like, I think focusing in on what it is you really want, right? Like Lamborghinis are cool, don't get me wrong. But I
Yeah.
don't really want a Lamborghini. I want to feel really happy with every day that I experience in my life. So if that means I can get a Lamborghini and that becomes part of it, more power to you. But I'd much rather have the happiness every day of my life than leave it dependent on having the Lamborghini, right? And
Right.
it seems if I align myself with doing that thing and not force it to be happiness plus a Lamborghini, I actually move towards the Lamborghini a lot faster than if I'm forcing it to be also happiness with a Lamborghini. And I'm happy while I'm doing it, right?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is it really worthwhile for you to paint a very vivid picture of exactly what you want your future to be? You know? Like
Right.
maybe just like get that one thing that's really fucking with you. Really focus on that and see how much it changes your reality. Maybe you don't need all that shit. Maybe you don't need a
Right.
mansion and you don't need to meet the love of your life and have 3 kids, 2 boys, 1 girl. They're going to be
Yeah.
named Jackson, Janelle, and Jeff. And you're going to have exactly this height of fence with this many square feet of grass, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't want to put all those stipulations because it's actually a lot easier to create certain parts of them than other ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, that
yeah.
being like, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff there. It's really good.
That's all
And that,
force, though. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I want to be happy. I'm already applying some force, right? Like, I'm saying that I want to be a specific thing. That's already kind of some force.
Yeah.
So, going any deeper than that, I'm applying more and more and more force, right?
Mm.
Like, when you're forcing into something, you are very much so hedging on the malleability of that object, right?
Mm.
Like, if
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
can't deal with bending to the forces being put on it, it will break, and that thing's you in this equation. That thing is you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you need to be able to house your own malleability to an extent where you're able to deal with the level of force that you're going to exert on yourself, and that differs for everyone, and you kind of need to manage that for yourself. You can both increase this capacitance or malleability, either one kind of actually plays into this, but you
Mm.
can either increase that, but still in the moment you're going to need to watch it and go like, man, am I fucking forcing myself to do stuff that I don't want to do, or stuff that's not really, it's force, it's going to break me.
Yeah.
You got to watch that, of course. Yeah.
If it's force, of course, of course, of course.
Yeah.
It's force, is force, of course, of course. It's a horse, of force, of course. 10 horses up the hill.
If you
Um.
really, I mean, like, if you really want to see, like, your ability to create your reality, it's best to do things like this in the first place, right? Don't try to,
Mm.
like, create some super specific reality. Say, like, I'm going to see more love in my reality in each and every moment. And then contemplate how is this love in each and every moment, and do your best to harvest the love in each and every
Mm.
moment. And then ask yourself in 2 weeks whether over the last 2 weeks I've experienced more love than the 2 weeks before that or not.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
run your results with yourself. You can bring them back to me if you want. We can talk about it, but you won't need to at that point in time, because you go, oh my
Mm.
gosh, it worked. I immediately started experiencing more love in my life. Right?
Yeah.
And you can do this with any feeling that you actually want to have. Realize the shit that it's hard to do it with, you don't actually want that shit. You want that shit to get some kind of feeling. You want to manifest money into your life. You don't fucking need money. You don't actually need money. You need the things money buys. And the
Right.
things that money buys generates feelings inside of yourself, basically. Like, do
Right.
you really need money, well, to feed yourself? No, not if food was just randomly delivered to your door. You would not
Right.
need that, right? So the point is that anything that's actually difficult or doesn't work according to this system is always a situation of you don't actually need that. That's not actually what you want. Like, you're forcing another layer with that. If you want
Yeah.
love, happiness, anger, anxiety, lack of anxiety, right? Fear, lack of fear, like any of these situations, you can pick any direction and go that way, asking for that emotion and then
Mm.
contemplating how can this generate more of that for me, and you will undoubtedly retrieve more of it. It's literally
Yeah.
impossible not to.
Yeah. It's funny when, like, there's a lot of things we talk about, or there's just so many things that, like ways of living or thought processes or things that are generalities or very true, or we have very explicit experience with. or not explicit, whatever. Extensive was the word, not explicit. Explicit is divisive. That's not unity.
It was also
Extensive.
explicit, 18 plus, parental advisory.
Also that. And and so there's some things that like I realized as you talk about them or I've thought before that I run those as like subroutines, as like a subconscious expectation or thought process for certain things in my life. Right, it's the reason my life manifests certain things and has, and I see the patterns and I see the, you want to call them generational blessings or be-morings or generational epigenetic positive morphogenic field expression or something in a neurological nurture environment that allowed some form of subconscious expectation in a beneficial way towards my life that puts me in a positive river in a lot of ways, or things I've learned hard ways and made choices and put those into me. You know what I mean? But at this point, seeing them as like subroutines and just running. And then there's others, like just the way you're framing that dialogue. And it's not like I haven't heard these things before, but that's always why they're kind of cool when you have heard them, but then you hear it in a new way for whatever reason. And so that just the expecting love at every moment in your life, having that as a general expectation. And I guess that part of that is because of the stressful situation I'm in a lot of 3D ways in my life right now. And but then also having just left from being with you guys, because I did not expect to cry all the way home like a baby. like what is happening? It was fine. It feels I like when I cry. Like it happens. If like it's natural. It's like, well, that's great. This feels awesome. And there's emotions that come with that. It's like a meditation. There's like moving energy, but it just feels really nice to like feel those feelings. It's not like anger and sadness and, you know, I don't know, where some people, I think when there's a departing, that's where goodbyes could be hard. It feels so hard. They don't know what to do with that. In the past, it's led to pain or trauma or, you know, just whatever, tied to negative emotions. And like, I don't have those ties in that way. So that wasn't any part of it. It was a pure just, I don't know, even like a morphogenic field disconnection, like a nervous system. Like, wait, where's my Zach and Jen? Like they're not around anymore. And it's just like the system's like readjusting, and so it's just like a release or something. It's just like, you know, it's cool, and it's, I don't know. Anyway, so like, side note, I was saying something else. If I had my video on, I'm literally out walking circles in my parents' yard. I'm out like walking along the rockery and just out walking. This is actually nice. We maybe should do shows like this where it's doing
Aaron walks in circles for hours. Join us.
Oh no,
all
I mean
of
like
Saturday.
Or we do no video and it's just like chatting like this, because it's a totally different dynamic than sitting in a chair for, you know, it's nice to kind of be walking.
Yeah. If you want an Aaron walks in circles for hours show, let us know in the chat. We'll make sure to get Aaron to do that for you.
I'll do it. We can do at least once and make some micro content out of it.
That's all you do. No mic. You just like, we set up a directional mic that can like, it records your, like you can hear the grass rustling underneath your footsteps.
Yeah.
No talking though, so that we can hear the grass. You know what I mean?
There, you can watch.
Very relaxing.
Okay, so saying, I've also had 2 joints. I'm on some grandfather tobacco right now. So I was saying, it helps me. Thanks, Lady C. What was I saying, Zach? Crying all the way home, and then talking about that's where I was, which is cool actually. Talking about that again, I hadn't thought about it in that way. Nervous system release or different, so that's interesting. Okay, but finding like an expectation for love for every moment in like wherever's around you, because there's like a subconscious.
Since we're just coming back into this, can we not call an expectation for love? Because I think it's important.
Do it.
Literally just holding yourself responsible for harvesting the emotion or a greater understanding of the emotion that you're wanting to fill your life with in every moment. It's not about expecting it to magically flow to you. It's about holding yourself accountable and responsible for creating that in your life.
Yeah.
So no
Yeah.
expectation.
Well said.
Like the expectation should only be there if you're very confident that you're fucking doing it. You know what I mean? Like I know that I'm looking for this bitch in every motherfucking moment. So I expect that I will find it because for the last 72 weeks I've been looking for it in every single moment and I've been finding it all the time. So now some kind of expectation that's actually like reasonable has started
Yeah.
to form. But don't let that expectation screw you over. You know, expectations are not actually something that you need in your life. There's something that you want in your life in order to feel some kind of security that really isn't there. You know that it's not there because your expectations have been let down before. So sometimes
Yeah.
you're wrong. So that expectation really isn't giving you that security. You put that expectation there and go, this should happen because you in some way believe that you've mapped the future and discerned the way that it's going to go, or at least to a high probability that you've discerned where it's going to go. But you don't actually need this and you don't actually know where the future is going to go. For all you know, like you discerned a week out perfectly, except for the part where a comet flew through the universe and ripped the fucking earth in two and no one's alive anymore on day 3. You didn't think about that one, did you, Hotshot? You know what I mean?
Yes, actually.
Like, so
Actually,
it's
I
like
have, and many
that's
other
a
permutations.
sure, but the point is that like inside of your little calculation of how your like business endeavor is going to go over the next 7 days and the
Right.
expectations you've placed on it, you probably didn't calculate for something that was like, you know, 1/1 billionth of a fucking percent that it was ever going to happen. But that doesn't
Right.
mean that that didn't happen. Like that could happen. Why would you
Yeah.
assess for those outlier cases? You know.
Right.
So, nevertheless,
Also,
the point
okay.
is
So
that
that
the
seems to me as
expectation
like,
doesn't actually give you any
oh,
benefit. It
okay.
only
Hold
sets
on.
you up
So
for trouble.
is expectation then like like you're talking about earlier, generally shoot, I'm losing the train of thought. I just went one circle the
Expectations
other
is
way.
like this is what will happen or this is what should happen.
No, the specifics of it though, the different than holding a general vision for your future, right? Instead of it being super specific, it's a general like direction, and then not forcing yourself to get there, but you're going there. But as you go there, then that can change, that can morph. So even along the journey, the expectation, if you will, or what you thought you were expecting to find there, totally changes, and that's okay. But being allowed to not cling to any specific expectation, but use them as a general, very loose guideline as you're trying to flow or not force towards a direction that's kind of always changing.
What are you getting out of that expectation and what are the risks of holding it? Will you be let down if that expectation doesn't happen?
Well, yeah, I guess we're trying to emotions attached to that word. I feel like using expectation in the framework I just laid out, no. But I understand, like, as a generality, that word carries that nuance, and I can see how it
Well,
would
what
for
I
me too
mean,
in the
in
ways that
terms of
I've
a
used it.
conversation between me and you, we're more worried about like whether or not you get the concept in a way that is actuatable, rather
Yeah.
than like whether we got the right fucking word on this, that, or the third. Like we need to use whatever word it means to fucking use. That's what I'm trying to like.
Yeah.
When you say expectation, does that expectation potentially set you up for any kind of destruction? Because if
I
so,
think for
then
most people, yeah. Well, I think
but
unknown
for
to
Aaron,
destruction.
what about for Aaron?
Oh,
And everybody else, ask yourself this question. If you're following along and you're thinking about this with yourself for one reason or another, ask yourself the question, like, if I use the word expectation, does that expectation set me up for some kind of destruction? If yes, ask yourself what benefits you receive by putting yourself in that potentially dangerous location. Because you might not be getting any benefits out of holding these expectations. They might just be a thing that you do that puts you into
right.
places where you're like,
Okay, so
fuck, I thought
trying
that
to
was going to happen and it didn't.
try and answer it for me, which is elaboration on what you just said. So I don't see expectation as something I am holding. I see expectation personally, even now, especially after this conversation, much more so that word. But my own internal frameworks have been there in the ways they are, and then sifting through those and finding coherence. But like, but if an expectation is like a general direction, the probabilities of paying attention to my astrology or certain
Okay.
putting into my
I
awareness
I call
that
these
help me.
vectors personally,
Okay.
but if you're
Oh, way
using an
better, way better,
expectation
way no,
by
way better, way
how I
better.
use vector, then
Yeah.
100%.
I'm okay. Wow, vector's way better. You've given me
It's
so many
just a
good words.
direction you're going. You know what I mean?
Vector though. Yeah, but vector.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I dig it. Okay, so that's why like at least I'm shifting right now and even cohering my whatever I thought expectations were based on this conversation, really, and cohering them more to vectors, like big time for sure. Because I already hold that with like goals, right? What the goal vision we have for the expanded understanding, ISN, I mean, to all of it, and the, living on
Yeah,
property,
goals are
doing that
best
whole
held as
thing.
vectors instead of
Yeah,
expectations as well.
totally. Wasn't it? So I've seen goals that way. It's like, the short-term goals may be a little different, I guess, but really those bigger ones are there's an anchoring vision that we all seem to cohere around, even last night, even more so, and with Frank, and like we're really cohering around. So it seems to be a unified vision, if you will, vector, right? And then I guess there's just little vectors in between, but that's a pretty big unified one, which is nice. So whatever destruction I have to go through in my personal Aaron Michael Kessler egoic life, then to ultimately end up there, which I'm confident I will, then I guess I'll try to find the least forceful way there, using good vectors and good friends.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're not in a position where you believe you're running out of time, then simply pointing in the the right direction and continuing to go will get
Yeah,
you where you need to go,
totally.
right?
What a great
And
vision.
that's kind of
Yeah.
the concept is that like we try to get there fast because we think we're running out of time, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no reason to get there fast. You just keep going. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing. Is my job, and there will be probably a linear time when that ends, but it's not going to be necessarily a nice little gradual cross linear. It is, but I don't necessarily see it. So the point is that I know that it's there. I'm going to head in that direction anyway. So whatever it takes to, whatever happens in between is fine. So it doesn't matter if there's other linear timelines here. I have to adhere to that one as I
It's so
take each
weird. I
step.
just had this like whole abstraction just unfurl in my mind about like the
Do it.
idea of a DJ mixing a track, overlaying
Mm.
on the concept of like a life transition is really weird.
Elaborate. Keep going. Dive into that.
Well,
I
I
like
mean,
that.
the idea is just that, like in DJing, well, really the best mixes between mixing is when you take one track and transition to another track, trying to make the mixture of the two sound as
Yeah.
seamless as
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
The best way to
Beautiful.
accomplish this is by matching the rhythm, but also matching the key that these things are in, because the ear will discern a difference if you jump to another key that is not fitting or it's not complementary to the key that the previous song was running in primarily. Like what it uses as,
Yeah.
I think it's called its
Right.
tonic or something. It's like the
Okay.
baseline key that the thing
A
runs in.
third or a fifth or a
It's
like it's
always
a crossover.
it's a note all the time, but then like the notes inside of the song will deviate off of that, but it's like the seed note for basically the song. Kevin probably knows what it's called. I think it's called a tonic, but I'm not sure. Nevertheless, tonic might be a speed thing. Nevertheless, the point is that there's a note that the track is, and that track would be in a key. Let's say it's in fucking A, right?
Good
And
enough.
I
Yeah.
don't remember how this go. It's in a certain key. That track is in A. Its octave would be probably all
And
over
be
the
A on
place
the next scale
because it
up.
has but realize like its octaves inside of the song are probably all over the place because it's got subs that
Gotcha.
are super low frequency, it's got
Right.
trebles that are super high
Yeah.
frequency. The melodies operate around a key of A, but they'll go like whatever complementary fucking chords are. I don't even know what these are. I don't know like note music well enough.
Yeah,
This is one
you're
place I
doing really
suck.
good, Zach. It's
But
really
the
helping
idea is
piece a lot
like
of things together for me. Keep going.
in order for the thing to sound right, it would go like whatever A B C A, but then this would end up sounding like A B C B C B C B
Right.
C, right? So
Right.
it's like it's centering around that idea of A, and there's a shitload of creativity that a person could play with that. This is just a basic
Right.
example, and A, B, and C don't work together properly with this. I don't think so. These are not exactitudes. Nevertheless, the equation-based concept is there. The idea that that track is A, the next track mixes best with that one if it is also A, right? Because
Yeah.
then you don't notice a harmonic difference in between the bass key of the two tracks. So not only like, but then this brought me to this idea of like harmonically mixing from one place to the next, and how really like there's a lot of overlay with that in the sense that
Right.
you want to like, well, the simple idea that like you're making money now, and the transition would go best if it was transitioning into a period where you were also making money, right? That's like those
Right.
two lives being in the same key in that certain regard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would
Yeah.
like the money to stay consistent, right? I
Right.
just don't want to do
Ideally.
this anymore. I would rather do this. And so it'd be
Right.
cool if like right now, so fucking your work is one track, right, that you were on.
Yeah.
But now there's like this new track that's mixing in of basically like podcasting and then whatever the other stuff that ends up falling out of this life, right? And that's
Right.
like
Right.
that's basically increasing in volume as the other work is decreasing in volume, hopefully creating a seamless transition between the work that you've been doing before and the work that you're doing in the future, right?
Right.
And you're constantly like managing that mix in the center. So it's
Right.
like
But then also
there's an
everything you're
old saying
saying.
inside of like rave culture that came from a song
Yeah.
that's just that God is a DJ, and it's really weird
Yeah.
to then like look at your own life getting managed like a fucking like a mix between two sets because it's
Wow.
like really like a God is
Yeah.
being
Really.
God is a DJ, right?
Okay, but really, but like remember when we were driving to the airport and we put the fractals up on the whatever the graphic up on the dash while we were driving, and like that overlay for real life. So even what you're saying, I'm visualizing because I've been watching a lot of it lately, and I was listening to the two tracks that Kev's played for us. He sent to me. I listened to them for like total 4 or 5 hours today, and I was also listening to those while I was listening to binaural beats that was transitioning over like 2 hours from 66 hertz up to like 96 hertz. Like overlaid. It was really interesting. That's where I was like stoked to like let's just talk about music tonight. Like I don't know why. I don't necessarily have shit, but I'm like there's things like and it's coming into this conversation. So that's interesting. So like obviously there's something there, right? Steering back into this, and it totally ties in with what you're saying. So as you're saying that, I'm like visualizing my life in that graphic, but my, within me, and all the different layers that are moving, and they're all coherent on some level, but they're moving all different dimensions and different timings and different beat patterns and like. But so my point is, if I maybe this is the expectation thing, I want my vector to be very broad, to take in all those harmonics at once, and there's going to be beautiful ways to dance through that. But if I narrow in, I have to have this. I have to have a transition that looks like this, and like, that may not be there, or it might, but I'll miss all these other potentially much more beautiful things all around that.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's kind of the idea of the vectors too, is that like you don't want to be happy in fucking 20 years. You want to be happy right now. So
Right.
you want to be extracting as much happiness as you can right now while making
Yeah.
sure that you're oriented towards the ultimate happiness that you're trying to obtain 20 years in the future. But you
Right.
plod towards that thing by following the path of happiness, not by going through the fucking struggle to suddenly pop out the tunnel at the light at happiness all of a sudden. Like,
Yeah.
that's not the way that really gets best accomplished. Like, find the happiness inside of your life where it is all the time, focus more on that, and focus more on putting time towards things that generate that, or the places where you're finding that, and you will find that enhance in your life massively, and that feeling that that's generating will generate an ignis or a passion inside of you, a fire that burns that will drive you to get more of it, and your drive to get more of it will be significantly more effective by not like trying to find it, but rather by seeing it where it already is in your life.
Right. Well, it's funny because on a lot of levels, I feel like I've mastered that, so I can be so childlike, like really honoring anything. Like I love the time with my family. Like who cares if people think I'm an adult and like, just about through a divorce and like hanging out with my mom and grandma eating a lot of ice cream. I mean, I don't know. Who knows if people think about it? But, like I know I won't have this time with them. Like I love that I have this time with them. Life changes. Just I've known that in general. And now we're coming to a time when things are speeding up and changing. I'm gonna walk. Getting involved in seeing myself on the camera and talking.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being childlike or being practical. It's when we lose the ability to be one or the other.
Well, no. So like, well, right, that. But then the elaboration on that dynamic is that, well, based on some really intense life circumstances, a lot of people would not have been able to. It seems, by comparison, as per I've been told, and just observation, that many people would not be able to maintain the disposition that I have, genuinely internally very healed, overflowing with my own joy and like enjoyment in every moment and just all those things, really for a very,
Right.
very
They're
long time.
surprised that you can be a nice person with what you've gone through, basically.
Yeah, those things, and just being as coherent and joyful and like about life and just
That's just code
healthy.
word for I would not have been as nice of a person as you are now had I gone through that. That's all that really is, though.
Okay, yeah. So there you go. Apparently, my point is though, so I figured it out for me, very internally, very difficult dynamics, but I feel like I've come through in a way that is very beautiful inside of me. So now going through a very, may not be difficult, who knows? Things could unfold beautifully. It's not even necessarily difficult right now. It's just like it's in the middle of the unknown, or the like, what's it called? The liminal space, because the wheels are in motion. It is happening, right? On 3D paper, linear time, and my phase out for my current income dynamic, and that dynamic's not there on the other end. So stripping things out of my life in a practical way, feng shui wise or whatever, really just getting rid of all the junk and the clutter, and because I got tons of it. I mean, moving from partly, well, I guess it's fitting. So going from a 3-bedroom home, 2-car garage, but like wood shop in the garage, like all that, to a studio with a loft and a storage unit, and like, so there's a lot of stuff though that's really over, and just letting that physically go. And I think even that, it just makes sense to me if I'm, in a deeper way, because it has made sense to me before, but it really will clear room physically, 3D, energetically, also whatever, for the other things to fill its place. It's like creating an intentional void. And so there's things that can be filled.
Well, universe is an abundant source if we really believe in its ability to be that. I mean, it is that regardless. Like every time you take a breath, there's more oxygen there. But, if we create the space for the universe to fill that in, it has a tendency to do that. We keep that space filled and then wonder why we can't fill it with other things. It's like, well, it's not filling up something that's already got stuff. It's creative, not destructive.
Yeah. So then you're not even destroying anything. You're just creating space for more creation.
Yes. Yeah, the destruction eats up the stuff that is, left over in the created space that you don't want anymore, right? But you're like, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? Like your destruction of, say, cleaning out your storage shed and selling all that shit ends up getting some guy a really good deal on a saw, which makes him really happy, and then he wants to use it, so he makes a super cool spice rack for his wife, right? Now you're happy that you got space opened up for you don't even know what. You also got $200 for a saw, even though that was a screaming deal. But the other dude's also psyched about his saw, and his wife is psyched with a spice rack. Plus, the kids are eating better now because she wants to use her spices all the time, right? So this has already created just a ton of basically fractal good, and now you have this opened up space and basically a couple $100 or whatever just on the front end to fill it. That, like, this has created a whole bunch of shit. It's not really destructive. It's only destructive if you're like, fuck this saw, and you just smash it on the ground or something because you're all fucking mad at your, your
or
wife
just being overly emotionally attached to the things, man. Because I'm not really emotionally attached. It's just
like, I can't get rid of it. Now I'm paying money for it to sit in a storage shed. I'm never even going to use the thing, but I can't let go of it because my wife bought me this for Christmas or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's ridiculous.
And like, because I've gone through that whole dynamic too. I've gone through beautiful phases of my life of giving things away and clearing, and have those beautiful stories and loving and just giving things away because it's beautiful to do that at the right time and the right moment to me, internally for me, right? Selfishly, I guess, but it's beautiful to see a gift given in such a way that it like changes someone's life in a beautiful way or means something to them, super meaningful in the moment or the dynamic. And the whole universe thing, you're sowing seed. You're literally giving of abundance, not because you feel like you should or it's a good Christian thing to do or whatever your belief system is. It literally feels good to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also, I have like another way that I sculpt this beliefs. It isn't really like necessarily I recommend it for everybody, but it's the thing that I like to believe because it's fun for me, which was basically that, like, I believe that I'm like infinitely valuable and nobody actually has that much to give. So really the only person who can really pay my bills, or the only entity that can, is the universe writ large. So I don't worry about other people paying my bills. I worry about the universe paying my bills because it's the only one that can actually afford my services.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's a perfect way to frame, like, at the most general level, in the correct way, most unifying way, right? Whatever. The thing I've learned within the church, I am Christ. Christ is God. Christ is God. He's the Son of God. He's God himself. He's, the whole God dynamic. I really got that, like, understanding who you are as creator, as God through that construct, and that shifting really understanding the Mother Earth dynamic, or even that as an entity and an engagement similar to the other dynamic, but all of it being inside of me, and all of it being ultimately about what's inside of me. And those are just symbol sets or things that allowed me to connect with myself. So that, like, what you're saying totally made sense. Why wouldn't those things come back to me? You know what I mean? It just makes sense. But the practical things of clearing things, or just trying to not force things, being reminded at times, I guess, when it's not necessarily a clean subroutine that's running in the background. It's like, oh, this one's kind of dysfunctional. It keeps putting me in forceful seeming situations. I got to rewire that.
Yeah, force isn't really a very fun place to be engaged in, whether you're the one having it pressed upon you or the one pressing it, really. I mean, it's conflict, basically.
Yeah. And back to the beginning. Conflict. The opposite of peace, right? Or antithesis. Is that what we're asking for?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, opposition or whatever. Antithesis, same thing. So, it's interesting because I think in certain ways, like, going back to this plur statement entirely, like, in many ways, this is like, every single one of these words is just like a different way to say cohesion.
Yeah.
Like, negentropic space intrinsically respects everything in the space. That's why it's self-ordering, because it respects the space and the shape that everything else is able to take. So it always like is willing to do the work that it takes to ensure that something else can come in, but the whole still maintains symmetry. So it's very respectful. Yeah. And that's how a
you said that.
unified space operates, is negentropically. And functionally, that negentropy is basically love. I mean, that's something coming into coherence. Two things existing in the same space, but still holding a shape that they're proud to hold, right? And that's really where peace really exists, is when two things have decided to be one thing and they're both good with the one thing that they're acting as, but haven't lost sight of the fact that they are one thing in and of themselves as well. Then they're completely at peace. They're at peace in the relationship. They're at peace with themselves, etc. And everything stays fine. So really all of these things are kind of code words for cohesion in my mind, but that's maybe just because I like the cohesion word better than these ones. So,
Okay, so like with cohesion, is it also a alchemical, or not alchemical, but chemistry term as well? Like where when two things cohese, do they become one thing, or are they like two things that are bonded to each other, or the idea is that they're melded into one thing, I'm assuming,
in a certain
right?
way, something, an interaction's cohesiveness would tell you how coherent the two things can operate as one thing. Right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, like, a glue is a very cohesive thing, right? And it allows, like, two things to hold together as one thing, yeah? And if you want a better glue, you get a more cohesive glue. Or we say that they are adhesive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they create a space. The two pieces of wood with the adhesive inside of them are now one coherent or cohesive unit, right? So the adhesive is basically what adds the adhesive to the coherent whole, right? So
Yeah. So, oh wait, the last adhesive thing threw me off. Dive into that more. Adhesive.
I'm just saying the word is adhesive, and
Yeah.
instead
to
of
add.
coherence, we need adhesive, right? And
Yeah.
the adhesive kind of adds the adhesive that brings the
gotcha.
things into a cohesive whole.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So that okay. What I was saying, I saw pictured when you were talking about it a little earlier, all being able to hold space cohesively for every.
man down, 11:30. Camera in distress. So yeah, I mean, any word that you want to use for this, it really doesn't matter. So we got
Sorry, I'm
Aaron
back.
back. He's back. He's
Yeah.
back. Don't worry. Folks.
So but the magnetic videos that we saw, we haven't seen any more of them. But what I saw was, remember, so they were, that 9 of them, 12 of them, whatever. They're all spheres, though, is my point. So they made, an expected repeated pattern in a sense, the way they cohese together in that space. But I saw, what if they were placing, maybe does this in the video, replace them with cubes about the same size or different shapes, like actual geometry, and how they would hold that space together. Like maybe some would rotate. I mean, I don't know where, you know what I mean? But my point is holding space. I mean, that's cool to think of scientifically or whatever, and visualizing that dynamic. But but just in the metaphorical way, metaphorical, psychological sense for people, more like
Yeah,
space for beings.
I mean, when you start dealing with cubes, the question is like, are they going to be like north charged magnets, all of them, or south charged magnets, or are they going to operate like a bar magnet? You know, basically you would get different operations with that. The reason why he uses spheres is that at the base of kind of this concept is that really reality is actually made of spheres. Like
Right,
angles
right,
are the
right.
illusions that
No,
you
for
see
sure.
through the interactions of the spheres.
Okay, yeah. But I can see it'd be really cool, dodecahedrons and icosahedrons and stuff, and like, just accommodating the lack of perfectness amongst even a cohesive unit.
Yeah,
It's not like
I
you
mean
have to
the
be a
spheres already
perfect,
make that stuff, and inside of the
right?
same ideas that Dan Winter is probably where like pulling these from and stuff. These very much so come from an idea of like, a grid of spheres creates these things, but this is the external geometry that they show. For the things to tessellate properly in between the things, they would really need to be like emergent spheres, right? Like they need to be able to be fluid. They couldn't be like blocky. Right, that
Right,
wouldn't work.
right,
It
right,
wouldn't
right,
work right.
right. But when we see we're close enough, like a dodecahedron, it probably would work. It would just operate interestingly, right? And that's you're saying other pieces doing enough work to maintain the cohesion of the whole because they're cohesive enough, because they're spherical enough, and then ideally over time, if we're talking about a cohesive like collective of beings
Sure.
or people in a space, everyone's becoming more and more spherical. So we soften each other's edges. Instead of maybe grinding out each other's edges, we can soften each other's edges.
Right. Yeah, or in a certain way allow the thing itself to soften its own edges.
Yeah, right, totally. Just by being with each other, around each other in ways that we're accepting, not taking offense, or I don't know, learning just how to cohese in that way.
The interesting thing about having like already a coherent base to a culture is that the other things that come in, they basically only have a choice to be coherent with that idea. And really, real coherence requires acceptance of stuff. So if
Yeah.
they're not willing to be accepting to the level that has already been established by the core, then they inevitably eddy themselves out. There doesn't actually have to be like any work done by anybody involved in it. They'll basically escort themselves out if they're not coherent enough with what's going on. So they'll either soften their edges or they'll choose to go to a different hole. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. Choose to go to a different hole. Yeah, totally. It
Which
totally
is
works.
fine. Like if you don't fit in somewhere, always remember you're perfect somewhere else.
There's
Yeah.
another hole that fits your semi-sphere.
What if there's some group you're trying to be a part of and you don't fit into it? Ask yourself if you really actually want to be a part of that group. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't even actually really fit that group. Maybe you should just be somewhere else. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Some some groups profess themselves as alchemical cult leaders, and they should take responsibility for their posts.
Yeah.
Oh wait, but they could just leave too. But no, let's participate in 200 comments.
Yeah.
Jesus. I love you, Zach.
Oh, I love you too. And I love all the people that partook in that post, especially
Yeah,
the people
dude,
that
totally.
disagree with me. I
Right.
like people disagreeing with me. They usually don't like the fact that I don't bend to their disagreement, but
Right.
that's another story entirely.
That's why it's 200 comments. I'm like, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
I usually don't, use a lot of those threads, because they get pretty nasty pretty quick, and there's nothing beneficial for me to read in my own
that one
estimation
stayed
of
pretty
myself.
good. There was really
Yeah, I was
only
like, there's
one specific comment thread that was like, not really any reason to read that.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's because I don't it's like for me chiming in on shit. If I feel like immediately in the moment that I have something relevant, witty, whatever, something that I find valuable, worth saying, and potentially getting responses or whatever, then I say it. And then other things like there's an actual shit. There's something here I don't know. I start to write or say, but that's 2% of shit I read. Most shit you just fucking skim or read or whatever. At least on that dynamic.
Yeah. I decide not to engage halfway through typing stuff out to people.
Yeah, that too. I do that too.
At this point in time.
I do that too. You're like, no.
It's not worth it, Zach. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
No. You are right. You are right. But not worth it.
Yeah. You got a good point, but do you really need to share it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, dude, I stopped doing that a long time ago. But it's fun. Sometimes just doing it too. I've like dropping posts just to get not to get a rise to be an asshole. Because for me, my own personal, I don't like fucking with people just to be a dick, like or stir up their emotions in certain ways. But like sometimes people like walk themselves into it. Like, all right, you're already in this, man. So you were asking me a question. Like you get into a banter. They're like, I don't know. Everything's it's very interesting, very subjective. That's where one's like, you even said the other day, like there's some level of you wanted to reiterate the cohesion dynamic, not creating divisiveness. And it's like, not that you have to change your post or change anything you say, but there's, where maybe like a text did get sent or message, they're like, shit, maybe I should delete that, but oh well, it starts on now or whatever. But oh shit, I got distracted with my yogurt. What was I saying?
I got distracted by your yogurt. ADD, folks. Here it is. This is what it looks like. Oh my gosh.
I got my yogurt now. We're good?
Yeah, we're fine now that he's got his yogurt. He will never get distracted again. Promise.
I find ways to dance through my rabbit trails usually. What was I saying though? You have to start back up. Or whatever's on your mind or whatever you're thinking of.
I don't really know what you were saying. So
okay.
Can't help you. I wasn't there yet.
What's on your mind? Plur's on the screen.
Yeah, I mean I've been sharing what's on my mind like the whole time. So.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I like the harmonic mixing idea. I'm gonna play with that one for a while. Thinking about like the concepts of various different overlays, uses of filters, track selection, changing genres, shifting tempo, using cuts and scratches. Like there's so many different angles that you could come at it. Like cuts and scratches, the idea that like you could purposely induce something that is like rhythmic dissonance in order to make it a more cohesive transition. Like that might take a little while to figure out how that actually operates. So I'm pretty excited about that. Like just kind of this is how things that I really like happen to me. They just like pop into my mind and I see it immediately and I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff in there. Like you can't dive into that right away. You just gotta like let it unfurl.
Yeah, remember what I say? I don't know, whatever metaphor I came up with when I was down there. I think it was something, but I saw it was like maybe the part of that or looking at the graphics first or something. It's like this whole like a window opened up into a sphere of a universe I didn't know existed.
Right.
I just can't do that. I can't do that right now. I'm glad I know where the door is. I know where. Thank you for showing me where the door is. I know how to get back there. I can't do that right now. But I also can't stop thinking about it. Can't stop thinking about what I saw. And then just dipping in, whatever. And then like I was listening to tracks today. And it's cool just hearing the additional layers and nuances. It's like literally just giving it time.
Yeah.
And literally, and it's just inattention too. I mean, you can be distracted doing other things too. But whatever. There's different layers of focusing on it. But the nice thing is if I'm not focused 100% in on it all day, if I'm listening to it, you hear it enough times through repetition. It does get in. It is coming in through repetitions. Then we do tune in. It's like the layers are readily available because I've been taking it in all day or whatever,
Yeah, totally. It's incredible how creative and capable people are when they put enough time into something. Like,
Man.
I really honestly think that, like, the biggest... I can't go that far. One of the primary issues of modern culture is how interested in convenience and instantaneous gratification that they've become. Like, these great plays by Shakespeare, the works of Da Vinci and Raphael and Michelangelo and other just amazing things that were built over time, they put so much fucking time into that. They put so much time into it. It's not created instantly. And you can still see this all over in the world. Like when someone gets passionate about what they're creating, there is just an enormous amount of nuance to the thing that they did, and all these little like tweaks and dials that they changed all over the place for the thing. And if you really take the time to appreciate it, by the time you get done appreciating anybody's passionately created piece of art, you're like, holy shit, this person's amazing. Like I can't believe there's all that shit in one place. That's amazing. They just gotta put in the time. Like people don't want to put in the time. They want to like tap two buttons and then they're a fucking some type of virtuoso, you know what I mean? And like that's just not how that happens. Like
Yeah.
Realize like the Mona Lisa itself took quite some time to paint, but the ability to paint the Mona Lisa, the time to get the skill to do that took a lot fucking more. You know what I mean?
Mm. Right.
So like the instant gratification inside of like passionate arts, it's not there, right? Like they're willing to put that enormous amount of time into something, and when you watch a human do that, you come to realize that like genius truly does exist inside of every single human being. If
Yeah,
they
man.
put their mind and their time towards something they're passionate about, the shit they
Right.
create is mind blowing, every time, all of them. Yeah.
Yes.
It's crazy. Like that's why I think in a certain way, like autistic people, they always do
Mm-hmm.
like something that's like mind blowing, right? Or like a lot of the times, it's really just because they're like willing to do that like the whole time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, man.
they're
Really
willing to
hyper
put so
focused.
much focus into it. So yeah, like even stuff that Kevin has sent me that it's like it's 13 years old or whatever. He sent me some tracks that I haven't like sent to you or anything yet, or like I
Mm-hmm.
literally like I haven't even listened to all of them yet. But
Mm-hmm.
like even when you listen to these things, they're like he's already told you a story about them, and he's like, well, they're not, you know, this ain't perfect. I'm thinking about going back into it because I screwed this up or whatever. You listen to it and you're like, I don't know, it's pretty fresh. You know what I mean? Like if I made something right now, it probably wouldn't be this good, and that was like 13 years ago for you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
No
so
shit. Yeah, no shit, man.
and he's
It's
kept
funny because
progressing guaranteed, right?
yeah,
Like but
right.
the progression, it's like it's very quick to get to like whatever, just arbitrary numbers, from 0 to 90% good at something. But to become great, you got to get that other 10%. And that other 10% takes 10,000 times longer than the first 90 did.
Right. Yeah, that's what that TED Talk does that talks about that, I think. That whole dynamic. But it's true. I mean, it's insane the amount of layers and shit that's in there. It's like yeah, it's that whole sphere thing. It's like,
Hmm.
what is this? This is not noise. This is not just like no. I mean, I've never judged it. I've never really heard it. I mean, maybe heard on tracks on movies and just like it's fine. I
Sure.
don't know. Just never really.
Yeah.
And then like now that like it being there for I mean it's just like the 10 days of being down there and you and Joe listen to this shit nonstop, right? It's like the
It
sphere
helps to be around
slow.
somebody who really loves that kind of art.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
really
yeah, it's
does.
not just you
Yeah.
just like listen to it like mindlessly or whatever. I mean, there's like
Yeah.
yeah, engagement. I mean, being out there just during the day with Joe, listen to random different songs during the day, stuff go on, be like, what is that? You know,
Yeah.
like, oh shit. You know, like just little random shit and like really talking
Yeah.
about our tune and just yeah.
I can say with extremely high confidence that if a person is not completely in love with music, painted style art, or what was the other one that I was already thinking of? Dance would be
Mm,
completely fine.
mm,
Or and this whole started with another one, and I put the whole list in front of it and forgot what it was. Oh, like basically like Elizabethan poetry, rhyme verse. If you had already like look at this stuff and go, "This is the most amazing thing on the planet," literally like come spend 2 weeks with me, and if we focused on that, like you would leave here going like, "This is the most amazing thing ever. I cannot believe this," because like I've deep dove into these things big time, and they are the most like some of the most amazing things you could ever possibly find. It's so amazing, like each one of these things, any person, it literally doesn't matter who it is. All of these things are just so baffling how much amazing talent went into them. You know?
I know, and I'm glad that like it's obviously it's true because we're still talking about it, and the more we talk about, it, the more it just like unfolds, and there's more stuff there. Okay, I don't know how to just make this still, and my tablet's dumb, but anyway, I was going to try and put this quote up here based on what you're saying.
Yeah, this is a quote that's attributed
Save
to
it.
Einstein, if you're just listening, that says, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid." That is, of course, if it buys into the judgments that somebody else places on it. But nevertheless, the
Yeah,
idea is good. You know, fish aren't intended to climb a tree, and so if you judge them based off of, if you judge somebody based off of their ability to do something they don't do, they'll always seem like they do a bad job, even if that is not the case at all. So it's not a good look. This is also why you should follow your passions, in my opinion. Is like, you know, the likelihood that you're exactly the same as, you know, a bunch of other people that existed in the world, and you need to follow exactly the path that they did, is not very good, probably.
yeah, How many think? How many of you in the chat feel like you are living your life's passion? I'm actually curious now. Do you feel like you are a fish being told to climb a tree, or do you feel like you're a fish swimming in your sea? Or maybe you're a
It's
monkey and you're
interesting
climbing
too,
your
because
tree.
like there's another format of that question that's equally good to ask. I don't know even know whether
Do it.
one's better, but are you passionate about the life you're living? Which is like completely different in some cases than if you're living the life you're passionate about, right? So, like the life that I'm passionate about, for instance, if I had exactly the utopia that I wanted in my mind, right?
Exactly.
Like, just as a small for instance, I would have some piece of land with an amazing internet connection that's right on the equator, right? If I was to make this utopia right now. So, like, I don't have that, but I'm very passionate about the life I'm living, right? So
That's
I'm
a great
not
way
living
to.
the life that I'm passionate about, but I'm passionate about the life I'm living.
Or would you say? Well, I guess that simplifies it. We'll just leave it there. I would say most passionate about, but yeah, no, I mean it's passionate. It doesn't need to say most. It's just the one you're passionate about, but you are also passionate about the life you're living right now.
I have as many pieces of that right now as I could possibly expect myself to have right now in a reasonable world. You know? I feel like I'm a fish and I have no idea what direction I'm swimming in. I mean, perhaps you have not chosen a direction.
Maybe you're in a little willow eddy pool. And then when the river's right, you find the right river or jump in or something.
Yeah, like when you say you have no idea what direction I'm swimming in, what do you feel that you would need to know, or what is stopping you from knowing what direction you're swimming in? Yeah.
Yeah, good question. Will's a faithful live chatter. Pretty sure she's gonna answer.
Being able to take and actually not be affected by negative attacks, totally never faltering in your beliefs and purpose. Are you saying like this is the idea of the life, a life that you're passionate about, basically? Is that where that was, or maybe that came from a different question? I'm not entirely sure.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, life he's passionate about, them being able to take and actually not be affected by negative attacks, and totally never faltering in your beliefs and your purpose. Yeah, there's a general framework.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's totally solid. You know?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
How do you? Because in a certain way, then Willow's comment and says like, I feel like I'm a fish, and I have no idea what my purpose is. In a certain way. So Kevin, how did you find your purpose? Like, did you?
Yeah, or how did it chose you? Apparently, what do you mean?
Sure. Yeah. How did your direction choose you?
Pikachu, I choose you.
Only like the thing inside the Pokeball chose the guy outside of it to throw him. Yeah, it's all weird.
Kevin, what is the little Pokemon that now lives inside of you that chose your vessel to inhabit you?
Mine apparently is named Ryobi.
I know. I was just thinking that. I was just about to say it.
He said,
Did he tell
"Played
you
drums
why?
for my entire elementary school." So you just like in elementary school, they put you on the drums one day, and you're like, "This is sick," and you just kept on going on the drums, or what?
This is sick.
Sick! Listen to these fucking noises. Sick! He's just hitting like these fucking
And they're like,
170 BPM
they're like
beats.
slow. They're telling me how slow down, Kevin. You're not supposed to do that
The energy
170
I
beats
felt
per minute
from
till later.
the applause, I knew that was it. Yeah, I mean, that would do it. So in a certain way, it's like, you know, you should be willing to try new shit. Like, maybe playing drums is your thing, but if you never get on the drum set, you'd never know, right? That's how I basically went about it when I was, whatever. I think I still go about it like that now. I was gonna say when I was younger, but I think like I still think I'm younger, and B, I still do this now, so maybe I am. But I really just like
You are.
I just try shit, and if I like it, I do it more until I get bored of it, and then I stop doing that. And then I feel like I'm aligned with whatever my purpose is in the moment. I'm not personally so worried about being aligned with my purpose as much as I'm interested in making sure that I'm drawing my line with purpose every single day. Right?
Very well said. Yeah.
So, like,
Yes.
my purpose has changed like 25 times in my life.
Yeah,
At
man.
one point in time, my purpose entirely in life was to be the best skateboarder I had ever heard of. I never lived it out fully, but I got really good. And then one day, I didn't really care
Mm-hmm.
about that anymore. I just like skateboarded
Mm-hmm.
to get between places and could do a lot of really good tricks for how little I skated at that point in time, right? And
Right.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like for a while, that was my purpose. And then at that point, later it wasn't. So, but I was doing it with purpose the whole time.
Yeah. It's
And
funny because that's like, so I've always known I've been like a jack of all trades kind of person,
sure.
just because my interests are so diverse, and when I just find an interest, I just dive into it. And like, especially when I got settled down to like a routine life, like I was teaching myself to do all sorts of shit on YouTube, right, and all over other places, all over, and like, I mean, I built a whole woodworking garage or a woodworking studio out of my garage. Just did tons of things like welding and tons of all diverse types of construction, electrical, and just projects. And then my work facilitated a lot of learning those skill sets and other things cognitively and whatever. But
Yeah,
that
you
whole
just learned like
quote,
a shitload of skills.
well, and like thoroughly would enjoy it. I'd find all sorts of life metaphors, and like I was deeply like it was because I found it so enjoyable. Like I was able to dive into those passions. Or it was like like whatever I was doing, like I became a very proficient woodworker. Like could I go try to be a woodworker and do really good at it and get way better? Totally. But I'm a
Sure.
pretty good woodworker, and I'm happy with where it's at. And like that's no longer in my life right now. Like all right, let it all go. It's fine, and like that's fine. That hasn't been for a few years, but just as an example of
But if you
diving
needed
into
to bust
different.
out like a sick shelf, it would be dope.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's the thing. Like any skill I
Inlaid
was
LED
interested
lights.
in, I always just like tried to do it myself instead of asking someone else to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where I got like a lot of my skills, like video editing, some level of audio editing,
Hmm.
understanding the internet, understanding video games, programs, programming, technological devices, list goes on.
Right.
Like everything that I came across, I was like, I like this thing. I want to figure out how to do everything with it.
Hmm. Since I only keep getting better,
Oh yeah,
pushing
I
the
was gonna
envelope.
bring this
Cover.
up. Pushing the envelope of comfort. Does this insinuate that you feel like basically your comfort zone is what has stopped you from being aligned with your purpose to whatever level it was at any given time?
Hmm. It's a good
Because I
question.
feel like that's a thing that happens.
I feel like maybe that's the thing I'm struggling with, or probably focusing on. Whoop. Zach switching to mobile. He'll be back shortly. What I'm noticing is there's no static in the background though. If you can hear me, Zach. So I didn't even notice that's how you turn your mic off, but there's a little bit of background static, and that might just be the way it is with the condenser mics, but it's very minor.
Yeah, I had like some fan on. I realized when I put other headphones in that like I could probably dial my mic back too and stuff. So nevertheless, now
Yeah.
I'm on this other thing and I got no control over it, so you gotta deal with whatever it is.
Oh, it's like Zach. It's like the old days.
Mhm.
Before I came down there and everything, we did everything and got all fancy and professional and cool. Well, fancy
Yeah.
mics. That's cool, man.
Yeah,
Like,
man, I wish I would give so much to have a better internet connection here right now.
oh man, I
Like,
know it. That's like
it's
the one
driving me
thing.
crazy all the time. I spend so much time explaining to various different people, mostly people who want to run podcasts, like why they can't just do it like this, or why it would
Mm,
work better this other way. That really that other way is just like a workaround for the fact that like, yeah, this internet connection is pretty garbage.
mm, mm,
Like Jen wants to create micro content on stuff on her podcast, but
mm.
the last couple days the video has been utter garbage. There's nothing we can do about it
Right,
because it's on the exact same connection with the exact same settings. Everything's exactly the same as it
right.
was a week ago, and the video was fine. So I have
No,
no
I know.
idea why it's even like that. It's the connection is slower than it was a week ago. That's probably it. But nevertheless, she wants to make micro content from it, but that video is not that great. So I was bringing up the idea that we could just like film with a DSLR her
Hmm.
while she's doing the thing, and then
Oh,
basically,
totally. Duh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
use that video as it, right?
100%.
But the whole idea is that like then the process of explaining this has all this talking about how, well, I mean, it's stupid because it's internet connection, we just be using
No,
a
I
fucking
know it.
DSLR the whole time, blah 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 blah.
I
And
know
I
it.
was just like, I don't know, like there would be so much more done for the podcast and this like whole community venture if like because I help other people like get their stuff set up and get integrated and create stuff for the beginning of theirs, and then also like bring them up and stuff. And it does,
Right.
like, it takes time for sure. You know what I mean? I could be
Yeah.
doing more for sure, but I also put in a good little bit of time every single day, you know?
Right.
And it's interesting how much, because like well, in my first conceptualization of these kinds of things that we're doing, I didn't really really think about the time that took. It's kind of like a person who's running a business overlooking the amount of money that they're going to have to spend to hire and train a new employee, right? Like
Right. Right.
you're underestimating the resource investment for bringing someone else into the thing that you're doing. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
And like I just like I it's not even a problem. Like I like to help them, and I hope that they get to like, I think doing the stuff that we're doing is really good for a person's self-confidence. And I think that's like a huge way to help yourself do something good for yourself, and as a byproduct, something good for the world
Mm-hmm.
in this world. So I like helping people get in the position where they feel like, okay, well, I'm able to do this. I'm able to just like do a podcast. Other people can hear me. Maybe there's a positive fractal effect. Like I like doing the thing. But
Totally.
when I first conceptualized what I was doing, I didn't factor any time for it. And I'm
Mm.
very surprised that 44 days in have 3 different people who have already ran podcasts on the channel, a fourth one that wants to as well. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
like concepts floating around for other shows as well. Like 44 days in, I'm super surprised that there's 4 different podcasts on this channel, right? Like I did not
Right.
expect that. I expected maybe we would have a couple other podcasts 100 episodes in or 200
Right.
episodes in or something. So like I didn't really assess any time for like that onboarding stuff and the other
Right.
stuff
Right.
I
Right.
would need
Right.
to
Right.
do
Right.
around that. And I've actually had to do it way more than I even thought I would even be engaged with it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been surprising to me how much time can go into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's cool. Like it's the thing happening that I want it to happen. It's happening ahead of schedule, right?
Mm.
These aren't complaints. These are just statements of reality. Like I'm so surprised that like, oh, okay, well, that that was an hour and a half of my time getting that situated. You know?
Yeah.
It was like, well, like talking to Holly the other day, like figuring out her colors, what else she needs for this stuff, how we're gonna do it. And then we have like situations where like there's changes on site basically, right? Like it was gonna just
Mm-hmm.
be this one thing, but now it's like then it's changing over time. Like I had a conversation with her that took like whatever, at least like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It was just like figuring out these little particulars that in a certain way I feel like I only needed like a couple pieces of information. But in order to
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like get across to her what she needed to know and for me to figure out what I needed to know, it took like 30, 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like when you think about these things, you go, it's just like an oversight. You're just like, that's not actually time. You know what I mean? And then you do it and you're like, wow, there's 45 minutes of my day. Right?
Right.
Like,
I know. And this is where like people. I mean, I really excited. I studied all the. I went through a lot of business training stuff, and there's really good stuff in there. Stuff I've incorporated in just mindsets and the ways I see and perceive things and whatever. But like, I get the value of the people who literally plan their day out to the minute, and I mean, I thoroughly understand it. It's just that seems like a lot of forceful work to make my life thoroughly planned down to the minute. That maybe if I got there, be comfortable, it'd make sense, it'd feel good. Because I can see I've had structured frameworks in my life, and Zach dropped off. I'm just gonna monologue here until he comes back on. I've had structured frameworks in my life. Even just when you're younger, as a teenager and stuff, there's school. That's a big structure most of your day. Then if you plan to do extracurricular activities, and I did sports, and then other things, like your day's really structured. Just most people like a 9 to 5, and then you have this time. There's kids, and there's dinner, or there's this. Then kids go to bed. Then there's this time. So like, life's very very structured. When it comes down to like when all your whole day is structured around, and it's fluidic around other people too. Have you been listening when you're off, Zach?
I mean, in the last 30 seconds,
Minute.
yeah,
Okay.
there was a
All right.
little moment where I wasn't because I was actually closed out stream on accident.
Okay. Whoops. Um, But so it's the thought of doing like I can see the benefit of doing like planning down to the minute, the days, like when business people do that and stuff. At the same time, what we're doing is still very fluidic, and the frameworks are coming. Like so, the thing you even sent me is like what we can send to people now who want to do a podcast or anything like that. We have a framework that allows them to properly manage the work, right? Let them do the
Yep.
work, and then just bring it to you. So like the more we can get those frameworks in place, then it'll be less,
It's
feeling
all
like we're
about
wasting
systems,
time.
man. You got to have like a distinct system for doing something so that when other people come and engage with it, whether they be employees or other producers or whatever they are, you can just be like, here's the system, do your stuff inside of it. And they're like, all right, sick. Like, that's really like the best way to do it. Or even if you're just running a business, you need to
Right.
establish good systems inside of what you're doing. Otherwise, you won't have consistent results. You can't really make solid guarantees to the client. Your fucking sales force ends up suffering because of that. Your marketing can't really make these really like stable claims about what you're going to be able to do. So marketing
Right.
suffers. Obviously,
Right.
since you're not consistent, you're basically product fulfillment. Who knows what's going on with that, right? So
Right.
like the whole thing topples down if you don't have consistent systems. This is where like this is where I really shine. I was raised by a systems analyst. Literally for almost my entire life, my mom was a systems analyst at like a
Yeah.
high corporate or governmental level. So like my whole life was built around, well, you better analyze the system. Like my mom fucking analyzed the system of the goddamn fucking car lighter. You know what I mean? Like she analyzed every fucking system. That's all she did with her life.
Yeah. Yeah. God, there's so many
It takes
conversations.
time then. Like
You know,
whenever
it's
you're
just
building something new, you got to build out all those systems basically or adjust them. Like I try to not reinvent wheels with this shit. But in certain ways, you're in your best. Like, well, look at the description of this. Like, you think I wrote all that copyright text? Yeah, right. I copy pasted that from somewhere. There ain't fucking no way. I copy
right.
pasted it, changed some names here and there, an ow or a we to a something else or whatever, and fucking
Yeah.
we're done, dude. Because like, but if you don't have that thing already ready, then I would be like, I mean, I could spend fucking 20 minutes to getting that same description written up every day if I didn't have it saved in a file where I could just copy paste it, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
That shit adds
Uh,
up. 20 seconds adds up if you take it to a long enough term.
well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. But really, if you can push, down 20 minutes down to a 20-second paste and click, I mean, that's, or 2 hours. I mean, that's awesome. But then even automating those systems at some point, I mean, some point that'll all spill over to somebody who like can help us do that. Maybe somebody does a podcast and wants to they also do social media, want to help us with ours or something. I mean, who knows, some kind of reciprocity or exchange services, or I don't know. That sounds awesome. Let's help each
Yeah,
other out. That sounds great.
yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff to do with anything you're trying to get off the ground. This is what people always underestimate. Like, if you haven't tried to start a business of your own, and you're listening to this, know that you will underestimate how much work you're going to have to put into it. There's no fucking doubt about it.
Yeah.
It happens every single time. Even if you've tried to start like several things, you'll still go like, oh yeah, I got time for that, and then you'll be like, ooh, this takes like 60% more time than I thought it did.
Yeah.
Yikes.
My dad was always good about that whenever we talk about doing projects together. Because when I was doing all the woodworking stuff, we got him really into it too. So we redid his garage, built like a big custom bench and inlays and like a bunch of stuff in his place. And so anytime we do a project, he'd say, okay, how long do you think it's going to take? And then whatever it was, like he always want me to think realistically. I know what he does. But then he'd add 2 hours, and that's how we schedule our day. And it almost always was right to the line, or sometimes we'd
Yeah.
go over, but we were just aware of that. Just like that's just that's how the way this
Yeah.
shit goes.
Especially with big projects, you have a tendency to
Right.
use the time that you set aside for yourself with little like, I mean, this is why deadlines can be really beneficial.
Totally.
Is just setting them on yourself. Is that you fucking get rid of little inefficiencies to make sure that you meet the deadline if the deadline feels tight.
Yeah.
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 So people who
Yeah.
procrastinate are the best at this. It's funny
Yeah.
because if they did this, like even in 1/10 the level they do at crunch
Oh
time,
yeah.
they
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
fucking so good all the time. But it's
Dude,
like
it's so
come crunch
it's like
time, every inefficiency's out the fucking door, and I'm hammering this out so
yeah, no
fast.
shit, man. Well, like yeah, because I get caught in that so bad, the procrastination thing. There's a TED talk that really was funny and resonated with me that I've thought about lately. I will have to watch it again. There's nuances in there, but like uh that whole dynamic's so true. And like when I like in school and stuff, high school and stuff was super easy. I did work, I did extra work just because it was fun. And I had time, I'd do it on the school bus on the way home or whatever. Like once I start driving, that was I just got my shit done before school ended. Like I'd finish, be done with class kind of early, do my homework or whatever. And then college, I did a bunch of extra work. Then a bunch of extra work in college. I remember starting to do like extra credit just 'cause I enjoyed doing it. I really enjoyed learning. And it wasn't like to get extra credit. It was like, it was extra thought processes. There was like extra stuff that other people weren't getting. You're like, great. Like, that's awesome. Um, and so I did, so when I dive into things, I dive in. And like, so part of me is like, Aaron, why aren't you diving into this? There's so much stuff I've started to do, like show notes. Like I could do that every day. Why couldn't I do that? Right. And especially in a way that, um, but then it's like, okay, well, why does that feel forced? Why am I not thinking to do that? What am I ever just what's going on around me? And I think about all the other stuff going on in my life. I'm like, okay, I'm in the middle of a vortex right now. I need to let this thing settle, not put any pressure on myself. There will be a
Yeah, and it's such a
transition here
fine
that
line because this is the same place where we justify ourselves into self-sabotage as well. You know,
do it. Yeah,
like
elaborate.
so, well, that's really like the space where it lives. You know what I mean? Is when you go like, I feel like I could be getting more done. I feel like I could be putting myself more into something, but why am I not doing that? And then you come up with some reason that's why you're not, and that reason
Uh-huh.
is then utilized as basically a justification for not doing it, rather
Mm.
than like, how could I modulate that to facilitate me still doing that, but I'm also doing this other thing more like I would like to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like,
So what? How could we
and
craft
it's
that in my specific
oftentimes
situation?
there's not actually even a good answer. You're just like, why am I
Uh,
not putting more time into that? And the answer is because you're self-sabotaging, right? You're just like
right.
purposely wasting time doing other shit so that you don't do the shit that you know would be
Right.
beneficial. So
Right.
it's just flat out self-sabotage at that point in time, right?
Right.
But we can also trick ourselves or lie to ourselves with that as well, you know, going that like,
Okay.
well, there's the concept of the upper limits that is used by, I don't even know who, it was passed on to me by some other coaches, but it's not theirs. Nevertheless, the idea that whenever you're trying to push yourself to a new version of yourself, you're going to inevitably encounter something that is like a boundary, that is what's the justification for why you're not the thing you want to be. And when you
Mm.
get to that thing, you got to be willing to just basically doze right through it. You know what I mean? So oftentimes this comes up, especially with a person that's done a lot of work on themselves, is it looks like a lot of really justifiable shit. But if you're using
Mm.
this concept of the upper limits, none of that is good enough. There's never a good enough excuse. Whatever the reason is literally just like the next wall that you need to fucking break down. You know what I mean?
Okay, but
So
how do
it's
you
like,
break down a wall without using force? You mean tear
well,
down or a different metaphor?
it's interesting. So like you when you say break it down, like this, the upper limits concept and the way that's approached is a bit forceful, but it's really more like a business tactic. It's not, I don't think it's perfectly refined for spirituality or
Oh,
anything.
okay. All
So
right.
an attempt to do
I
it
was really
here
interested.
on the fly, however, would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
that instead of thinking about that you need to break down the wall, it's more like recognition that this is the wall that you're against, but you're still choosing to go in the same vector regardless of the fact that the wall is
Huh.
there. So you're
Yeah, yeah,
going to
yeah.
step through it. You're not going to break it
Yeah,
down, but
yeah.
you're going to continue to go through it regardless of its existence, pretty
Okay, I
much.
like okay, to me that fits metaphorically, spiritually, and the other and business wise too. It's like doesn't mean there's not rooms for avenues for coherence along the way. It's not like get on the bus or be run over by it. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of there's some dynamic, but no, it's really like you can get on the bus if you want to. You don't have to. We are going this way, and as we go through you, we'll find beautiful coherence and negentropic space as we go through, so we won't hurt anybody.
I mean,
But
one of
we're
these
going. We
limits
are
is
going
going to
this way.
discern whether or not you want to be the thing you're trying to be enough. This is the
Mm,
line of enough, right?
yeah.
Like, whatever identity you want to hold does have requirements on it. All identities do. So if you're not willing to do the things that are required to get you from point A to point B, then you don't get to point B. You weren't
Mm,
willing to do enough. You didn't want it bad enough. It's the
yeah.
reality of the situation, you
No,
know.
it's true, and that's the
I'm not
procrastination
saying
thing too.
everybody has the same fair A to B journey, right? Like if you're born
Right.
in fucking Watts, California, in the middle of fucking, you know, the Watts riots, and you did everything in your life to try and become whatever, you know, the next Bill Gates or something, and it didn't work out for you, like you had a longer journey than Bill Gates probably did. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm not saying that the A to B journey is in any way, shape, or form the same, or that everything is even fair in this regard, but just that if you are at A and you wish to get to B, you're going to need to traverse the gap in between them. If you cannot do it, then you did not do enough. That's what it means,
So
right?
that's
It's not
like
a judgment of a person, it's a judgment of an
so
interaction.
yeah. So like okay, Kevin's comment. Keep getting better, pushing the envelope of comfort, and not that comfort's the object that needs like comfort itself. Oh, I'm comfortable. It's an obstacle. Like it's not necessarily comfort has to be a thing that's relevant to the transition at all. I mean, it doesn't necessarily
Right.
have to change at all.
He's talking
But
about comfort as basically like the boundary between where I'm comfortable and where I'm uncomfortable. You know what I
right,
mean? He
right,
steps
right.
into that uncomfortableness in order to allow himself the space to grow
And so that's what I'm
rather
saying.
than remaining
So
in the
in
comfort.
so the with the enough part, stepping into the uncomfortable enough, long enough. Like there's a I don't know where I shared this recently. I thought of it recently, but like in the Christian dynamic and one of the teachings and seeing this metaphorically in the ways it makes sense with for them and some dynamic. But here it's just funny that the thing with a living sacrifice is that it can get up and walk off the altar. Right.
Sure.
So there's a, and that's different. I don't like that metaphor really because I'm not, putting yourself to the fires to be burned on behalf of something or someone else or even yourself. And you have to burn and torture your ego to kill it to the next stage. Like I don't think that really, it's like a refining fires. It's still you. It's burning off the dross. It's bringing greater levels of what were you saying? Coagulation and what was that term you use? That whole
Cohesion?
no
Is
no
that the
the
one you're talking about?
coagulation and the cycle of coagulation and
Calcination?
no, if that was like the more like your own sphere, whatever. It's constant process of coagulation, right? And then I don't know, whatever. You talked about it a bunch of times. Is this not? Am I not saying it right?
I'm not
Like
sure.
internally, spiritually, heal or like alignment, whatever. Okay. Anyway, I'll just move on. If it comes to you, it comes back to you, or maybe I said it
Okay.
wrong. Um, but so even what you're saying with the wall, the difference between breaking through the wall or you need to break it down as if it has to move so that you can move through versus I am moving through if you're
Yeah,
still
you're not
there
really breaking the
and
wall down anyways. It's still functionally there, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
but it's like
if in
yeah,
order to market my business, I need to go down to the local chamber of commerce meeting, and like when I go down there, the wall of me going to the chamber of commerce meeting is still there. I just transubstantiated it, right? Like I went beyond it.
yeah, right, totally. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That whole thing, right? So you're choosing to face the discomfort, right, or face and not run from it. That's where procrastination, right? It's like I know if I could do this, I could structure it out over a course of days and get it done a little bit a day, but like I don't really want it bad enough. Like until it gets down to crunch time, fuck. I only want it bad enough. Now the sacrifice, like I'm on one hand like use those other times the way you wanted, but now you're to this crunch time, so all your time goes in that efficiency thing. But ultimately, being from, I guess, not willing to be uncomfortable a little bit each day, if you will, or choosing something that may be a little uncomfortable versus one day of massive discomfort or something. I guess it's
Yeah,
just a choice of where you place your discomfort. Do you face it a little bit every day and actually deal with your priorities and responsibilities? And like I'm having to reassess that in a whole new way and really get down and get shit out of my life and sell shit. And I mean, I've wanted to do it for a long time. It has nothing to do with like I need money. It's not about that at all. It's the energetic dynamic of it. It's really just letting that go. So like
sure.
it's not. It's totally. It's not, I'm just thinking about it now. Like it has nothing to do with money. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and just especially coming down from that life to a much simpler life, which I wanted to do regardless of if I had this job or not. And so that's like creating space just for whatever is coming next energetically. And so just doing it. I have been putting those things off for a long time instead of doing them because I'm on the fifth floor. There's no I'm blah blah blah. There's no elevators. Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of shit there. I don't want to do it. Just whatever.
Yeah, all kinds of
And
reasons.
all kinds of reasons, right? Just totally whatever. It's my own choosing to put it off. So whatever. So I'll be getting a lot done in a short amount of time because I kind of have to at this point. So it's good.
Yeah,
Have
I mean,
to.
I'm probably gonna go after this, but I've kind of adopted this methodology of just like doing doing it as I want to do it. I make
Yeah.
like big lists of stuff to do, and I do it as I want to do it, as it appeals to me. And I find that I still end up procrastinating anyway. So I kind of get like the best of both worlds. I get to like
Mm.
crunch time it still, but I also like get shit done along the way. You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So I just don't. I make sure that I'm not avoiding doing the stuff. If I'm avoiding doing the
Right.
stuff, then I look at what it is that I'm doing, and I make a
Yeah.
change to what it is that I'm doing. You know.
Yeah.
So I may not be getting like everything done as fast as I want to in any minute. And there might be reasons or whatever, but as long as I'm not actually avoiding doing the stuff, then I know that it's like it's still in alignment. It's just like also in alignment is hanging out here in the backyard, just sitting in the sun for 20 minutes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, be easy with yourself, I think is the message inside of there somewhere. And really, like with the plur one in the beginning, be easy with everybody else too. Like be easy to get along with, and you'll find that the world gets along more than it doesn't get along. No.
Mm.
So I'm gonna head out. I love you guys.
All right.
I don't know what are you doing, Aaron? You staying? You
Yeah.
going?
That sounds good. Yeah. Why don't we call it a night?
All right. We love all of you. Thank you for being here, Kevin.
Very,
Thanks
very
for
much.
always being here for the music, the
Yep.
inspiration, everything. Willow, thanks for always being.
Oh, and Zach may have cut out already. So, and Willow, thanks for always being here. I think he's
And I
saying, and
guess we'll
everyone
have to
else.
finish talking over here. Good thing I'm here on
There
two
he is.
accounts because my
Yeah.
phone overheated at the very last second. And
Uh-oh.
so, yeah, love you all very much. Thanks, everybody, for being here every night, taking part and stuff, being who you are. I
And
appreciate
everyone
it.
listening that we don't know who you are, for past, future, and the other 7 or the other few people there, we love you too. It's really cool that you choose to tune in for whatever reasons you do. We love you. We want coherence with everyone. And that's what we're holding space for.
Yep. We will see you tomorrow at the same time. Make sure to check out Jen's show at 5 o'clock every night
Yeah.
as well. She's very wonderful too. And actually, like,
Mhm.
usually has a point to what she's doing on her show. So
Actually,
that's
yeah.
a big plus too.
Very
All
much
right.
so.
Love you guys. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah.